All right, so this is actually going to be, well, let me give you a little bit of backstory first of all. So when COVID hit, and a lot of people, closed shop and churches shut down, and everybody was doing the online stuff. As a campus minister at UTC, one of the things that I wanted to do was make sure that everybody had some way to stay connected. And so somebody had mentioned to me, this was not my idea, but somebody mentioned, hey, you should do a podcast. Actually, I think it was my son Parker. He's like, why don't you do a podcast and keep everybody connected? And I said, what's a podcast? and so he tried to explain to me what a podcast was, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, so I can do that. So we started this podcast, and the point of it was to really get college students and other people that were connected to campus life, youth ministers, other church leaders, preachers, and just begin really talking to them about different relevant topics that high school students face, college students face, and this battle that we're all in, this spiritual battle with Satan constantly attacking us. And one of the things I found out at a secular university is that's a big deal. It's a constant struggle. And so as we began interviewing students and talking about their faith and that kind of thing, it began to resonate. So we did a whole season, one season, and so I thought, this is a good opportunity to start a second season. So you guys get to be part of like the live audience of season 2 of The Lion, the Way, and the War. So we're actually going to be recording this. It's not a live feed, but we're going to get the recording down, and then it'll be put up onto the different places where you go and listen to podcasts. So the hope is that you guys will, especially those of you that are like in high school and you're beginning to think about this next step. Like what happens if you're thinking about going to college, you can kind of get a head start and listen and see what it's like to be a college student as a Christian on campus and how to navigate those things. So in preparation for today's podcast, what I wanted to do is give you guys an opportunity to put these guys on the spot and ask questions about, hey, what's it like to be a college student as a Christian and all of that. I've had some others that have submitted questions, so if you guys are too shy to come up here and ask them a question, that's fine, because I've got enough here to cover some time. And I think it'll be a really interesting thing to hear what they have to say. So, everybody on board? We know what we're going to do? Okay. And you guys get to kind of see how we put a podcast together. You're going to hear some of the music and the intro and outro stuff that we do to put a podcast together. So let me pull up my notes here, and let me remind you guys, this is a podcast. You're going to have to hold the mics right up to your mouth, because if you don't, then we're going to get... And anyway, the secret to college life and success is really... So that's the whole big secret. And we don't want that. We want to hear every single word you have to say. All right. And be careful, again, passing the mic, because it picks up noise. You good? Okay, and we are recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first podcast of Season 2. The name of our podcast is The Lion, the Way, and the War, where we discuss Jesus, His church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us. My name is Craig Allison, and I'll be your host. To all of our listeners, I just want to say how excited I am to be starting a second season of the podcast. If you listened to Season 1, you know that our podcast came to life as a way of keeping our college students plugged into spiritual matters during the COVID shutdown. So we didn't have any expectations or real goals other than that. So it came as a surprise to learn that our podcast grew into one of the most listened to shows out of over 3 million other podcasts. That's why I'm so excited today to be kicking off our second season with a very special episode that is different than anything that we did in the first season. We are actually recording this podcast in front of a live audience of area high school students and other college students, and they will be asking and submitting questions to a panel of 4 college students. So just as way of saying hello to all the listeners that are out there, you guys give a big round of applause if you don't mind. So like I said, we're going to be submitting some questions to this panel of 4 college the 4 college students, and these questions are going to be focused around the next step of their educational journey, particularly about what to expect in regards to their faith and spiritual life while in college. So to begin, let me introduce you to our panel of college students. I have 2 students who are just now finishing up their very first year of college, and 2 students who are graduating from college in about 2 months from now. So from left to right, we have freshmen Tynan Breeds, Rayleigh Caldwell, and then seniors Blair Shelton and Chance Hobbs. So Chance, we're going to start with you, just a very brief introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your major, where you're going after you graduate, maybe where you are from, whatever you want to share.
Are we ready? Good. I'm Chance Hobbs, also known as Chandler Hobbs. I am from McMinnville, Tennessee. I am a senior accounting student. I do have my associate's degree from Montlow State Community College in accounting. I currently work at Croft & Frost, which is a local accounting firm, so I'm a tax intern there, loving it. This is my first and only year being an SA. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and looking forward to see how the CSC grows in the future.
Hey guys, my name is Blair Shelton. I'm a senior graduating in May with my degree in exercise science, and I'm going to grad school for occupational therapy. I'm from Loretto, Tennessee, which is a really small town, about 3 hours away, so it was a pretty big move for me when I came to Chattanooga. I've been a part of the Student Center for 4 years, and I've been a student ambassador for 2, and I love the Student Center with my whole heart. I think it's one of the best places and a great way to get involved. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are here.
Thank you, Blair. Rayleigh?
My name's Rayleigh, as you said. I am actually technically a sophomore now. I took part-time classes last year through a community college, but I didn't get my associates. And now I'm majoring in construction management. I started UTC like first day, got connected here into the CSC, and it has really become a home. And so now I'm interning there, and hopefully be an SA next semester. And I'm also a barista at Room Ramp, so that's that. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, Ty.
What's up, guys? My name's Tynan Breeds. I'm from Massachusetts, so not really from the area. But I came down here in August of last year. I go to Chattanooga State for non-circuit testing, which is I'm specifically going to be doing aerospace engineering to work on airplanes. The first week I moved down here, my roommate Will, he invited me to a party at the CSC. I had no idea what it was. I also really didn't have any friends down here, so I was like, sure, why not? The CSC became my real home away from home. I love it and everyone that goes there. And it's a great place to be. I'm looking forward to being a student ambassador next year.
All right, thanks, guys. So you know a little bit about our panel today. You know, you look at Rayleigh and you would think, oh, she's like fashion design, home interior, whatever. I'm in construction management. That's okay. All right, so we're just going to jump right in. And again, for those of you that if you do have a specific question that maybe you don't hear me ask, you're like, I'd really like to know that. You know what? All bets are off. We'll wing it if we have to. If the question is tough to handle, well, you know, they're in college, and sometimes you get tough questions. So it'll be a learning for everybody. So I'm just going to jump right into this, and you guys should see the questions here on the screen. So this first one is, what are some of the biggest differences from high school to college? And I'd like Ty and Rayleigh to both answer that, because you're fresh out of, you're closer to the high school than you are these two old fogies on the end.
Ladies first, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for me, I think the biggest difference is coming to a place where I really know no one, and like not having a certain label on me, not having like the support or the pressure of being really Caldwell, who I was like in my hometown. So I think that's like just the main difference. Like, it's definitely like you learn who you are, for sure, not who you were like labeled to be. So I would say that.
Well, I moved about 1,000 miles away from my home, so I really am removed from everyone. I'd say the biggest difference for me personally is I take classes specific to what I want to do, so I know that everything I'm taking is relevant to what I want to do in my life. Nothing I'm taking is like maybe to fulfill credits, but I'm not taking advanced classes in fields that aren't my own. So I know that everything I'm doing is specific to me, and that really motivates me a lot more. All the classes I'm taking I know are going to pay off for me, so that makes you a lot more motivated to do good in them.
Okay, so the next question here is, how does living away from home change you? So Blair and Chance, if you guys would handle that question, please.
Ladies first again. I think that living away from home really forces you to grow up and kind of, like they were saying, be your own person, but also you have a lot of responsibility that maybe you didn't have. Just making the right decisions, making sure you're going to bed and getting to your classes. I think that was one of the biggest things for me, like something that has kind of changed for me. As far as like my personality, I think that you kind of grow into the person that you're wanting to be. You kind of get to choose who your friends are, what your friend group is. You're not forced to go to school all day long or anything like that. So I think that it's actually helped me grow a lot, being away from home, being on my own, and then also it's really strengthened my faith personally. I know that for some people maybe that doesn't happen, but for me, being a part of the CSC has really helped my faith grow in so many ways.
Yeah, before you answer, Chance, and maybe you can actually redirect your answer, because Blair said something really interesting here. I don't know if you guys in the audience caught it, but her faith growing, she connected that with being involved in a campus ministry, the CSC. So I think a takeaway from this, if you know you don't hear anything else that's real important, maybe clue into that, because it's a theme that you're going to see on both ends of that spectrum. 2/3 of college students fall away from their faith when they leave home. It's a sad and scary statistic, but we have the opportunity to not let that happen. So there's a formula that goes a long way in keeping your faith. Not only keeping your faith, but growing your faith. Becoming a stronger Christian, not riding the coattails of mom and dad's faith, but experiencing your own faith, which is crucially important. Okay, sorry, Chance, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with 100% with everything Blair said. Moving away from home, moving away from mom and dad, it is a struggle, but you find out who you want to become, who you are, who you want to hang out with, surround yourself with, etc. And going with the faith thing, mommy and daddy aren't there to wake you up for church, wake you up for class. You have to wake up and do it on your own. It's a big accountability change, in my opinion. So just like Craig and Blair both mentioned, just waking up, doing it, and finding out what you want to do and going out and doing it, just completing what you're set out to do.
Okay, this next question. What is the hardest thing about going to college in regards to staying faithful? And does anybody want to particularly answer that question? I just want one of you to answer it. Anybody really want to answer it? Chance, the mic's coming up. Wait, you're thinking? Nope. Mic's going back down. He's passing it off to Blair, folks.
I can take it. I think the hardest thing about going to college and staying faithful is not everybody is going to stay faithful. For me, I came from a small town where being faithful was actually pretty popular. So when I came to a city setting and came to a college campus where that isn't popular, that was kind of weird for me. I saw a lot of friends who were involved in things that really looked fun on the outside. And so that was kind of, you want to be a part of that. If they're having fun, if they're doing the cool stuff, you kind of want to be a part of that. And so that's what I think was the hardest part for me, trying to stay away from the things that looked fun at the time, but knowing deep down those things are not going to lead to good things in the end. It really helped being involved in the Christian Student Center because we do fun stuff, and so it was kind of like we were having fun and growing our faith. But I definitely think the hardest part is not everybody's going to be doing that with you. So I think that was different for me coming to college.
Okay, so this next question, is it harder to get involved in a church while you're at college as opposed to being at home? And Ty, would you please handle that question?
Well, I did not go to church before I went to college. So for me, I think it's probably, I would say for a general person, it's maybe a little bit more difficult because you don't have the people to push you to a church. For me to be able to, yeah, it's right up there. Is it working? For me, it's different because I had a group of friends who I met very early on who brought me into the church, who gave me very strong role models to follow and to be able to find my faith and grow it on my own. So I definitely think it's dependent on your person and what decisions you make and who you surround yourself with. Because as they've said prior, you really get to make those decisions for yourself, and it's very important that you make the right decisions for yourself.
Okay, thanks, Ty. And we're going to stop right here for just a second. And Parker, do we have a technical issue going on? Okay. So the great thing about not recording live is you can go back and edit this stuff out. And so, at the end of the day, it makes me sound like I'm not so stupid. All right, so here we go, rolling back. This next question, what do you think is the most dangerous thing at college for your soul? And let's ask Rayleigh to handle that one.
Ooh. Okay. Let me think here for a second. I would say the most dangerous thing that I feel like I've noticed is just the opportunities in college, like we just mentioned, like you're drawn away from your family. So that creates a lot of space for isolation and alone time. And I think that those are some of the most like dangerous things. Like you have to be fed, and like your soul is nourished by like being surrounded by others who lift you up. And if you're not, then like it's gonna go downhill. And so I think that just at college, like you again don't have your family with you. A lot of your friends are back home. And no one's really like, you kind of have to make that effort to be like, I'm going to go out and do this. I'm going to go to the CSC today. I'm going to go to class. And it's really easy just to say, no, I'm just staying in. And once you make that decision, like, it's hard to get out of that path. So I think that's just one of the most dangerous things is isolation.
Okay, and this next question, what is the best way to stay faithful during college? So kind of those two flow together. And Chance, if you don't mind handling that one. So we're getting a perspective of somebody who has not been there long, new at college, and then Chance is about to exit out. So I'm interested to hear what your perspective is.
Yeah, it's definitely just surrounding yourself with people you want to become and be around. People that lift you up, like Rayleigh mentioned. And the CSC is a perfect place for that. There's constantly events going on, people studying in the booths, people eating meals together. And I think the coolest thing about the Christian Student Center at UTC is your faith grows even when you don't even realize it. You don't even have to be studying the Bible or listening to a Devo or listening to Craig give a Bible study. Just sitting and having a conversation with somebody, even if you're like playing a video game or you're studying for a test, whatever it is, your faith is always growing. So definitely answering the question, the best way to stay faithful is just surrounding yourself with the right people.
Thanks, Chance. Okay, here's one. Is it possible to have fun at college and still be a Christian?
Yes.
So, yes, one yes. Blair, is it possible?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what you call a closed-ended question. Not good for interviews for those that are paying attention. But yeah, that is a good question, I think, because a lot of people believe that when they go to college, the two are not necessarily connected. How can I go to college and have that cool college fun experience and still be a Christian? Well, I can't. So I have a choice to make. Either do the party lifestyle college thing or be a fuddy-duddy Christian. I said fuddy-duddy, yeah.
I was going to say, can we elaborate
Yes,
on that?
please dig me out of the hole.
Ladies first.
So I just want this to go on record. We have more fun at the CSC than any group that I know. So we're not fuddy-duddies. We have a lot of fun. We have parties and events. We celebrate every holiday you can think of just because we love to throw a party. We do all kinds of different things throughout the week. We have free food like all the time, and it's good food. And so I just think that there's definitely a lot of fun to be had as a Christian in college. If you get involved in a ministry, there's tons of ministries across tons of campuses. And so, yes, we do have lots of fun.
Okay, so let's skip that question for the sake of time. We hear about growing your own faith in college. What does that actually mean? So I'd like all four of you to give a brief answer on that one.
I'll go ahead and start. We mentioned moving away from home, sort of taking accountability earlier. I feel like that's part of growing your own faith. You have to take that first step forward. Nobody's going to, like I said, come wake you up, push you out the door, drag you to the church building, to the CSC, whatever it is, when there's an event going on, when Sunday morning when we're having Bible class. That's something you have to want to do, and that's growing your own faith. That is wanting to study the Bible on your own time, making time to pray, study, and grow as a Christian.
So I think that growing your own faith in college, like Chance said, like it is your own faith. It's no longer dependent on anybody else. And so I think that that is a really cool thing. You know, you're no longer living with other people that are going to church. Sometimes you may get roommates that none of them are going to go to church with you. None of them are going to be getting up on Sunday morning, getting ready, driving to church, walking to church, whatever it may be. So you're making all these decisions for yourself. And I think that that is one of the biggest opportunities to grow, though. I think that sometimes if you've grown up going to church, it kind of gets to be repetitive, or you just don't really think about how awesome it is that you are going with other Christians and that you get to go with your family. And so as I've come to college and been able to do that for a little while on my own before I really met a lot of people, it was really awesome to kind of take that ownership in my faith. Like I could no longer say that it was just because my parents were taking me. It was because I was making that decision. And then also reading on my own, being pushed to study because I was surrounded by other Christians who were studying as well. I think that that's just kind of what that means.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just going to restate everything they said. But I think for me, just like looking back, I think my faith has grown more in college, like in the past semester, than it had throughout the entire span of when I was at home. And like I grew up in the church. So I think that it's just kind of like exactly everything that they said. Like it's something that if you, I don't even know. I feel like everything they said was just like right on point. But yeah, I've just like taken a major leap here, and I think that now I believe more than ever. Probably, like I talk to some people and I'll be like, everything's a sign. I believe like more than ever, but yeah, that's just what it means to me.
All right, so personally, as someone who didn't grow up in the church, from someone who have completely started their faith when I came to college, the student center for me is such an incredibly valuable resource. Everyone that's there, all the fellowship that we have, the devos, the classes, the Sunday morning classes at Central, it's incredible. All the things that you learn about from someone who I didn't know there were multiple books in a Bible to now knowing like so much more than I could have imagined. My faith has grown exponentially
and it will continue to grow, I'm sure, with everyone that I choose to surround myself with. And as long as you choose to wake up every morning and take that day as another day that you can grow your faith and dedicate your life to God, you will continue to grow your faith. And it's such an incredible experience, and it's such a awesome thing to be able to say that your faith is your own. You go to church because you want to, and you dedicate your life to God. That is something that is incredible, and you can really only earn once you choose to go to church yourself.
Okay, what is a campus ministry, and what makes one better than others? So I'm going to add a little bit to this question, because I'm looking out at you guys, and I'm thinking, those of you that are in high school, you're planning to go to college, I hope. And so what do you need to be looking for, assuming that you are going to get plugged into a campus ministry? And you guys, I really, really hope you will, because these guys, they hear me talk a lot about community and running quickly from being isolated. That is the worst thing you can do. So my hope and my prayers for every high school student that is looking at college, that the number one thing on your list is finding a good campus ministry. So Blair, if you would answer that question, if you could tell your freshman self coming in, what are you looking for as far as a good campus ministry? What does that look like for you?
I think the number one thing is a group that is going to be having events every week, one that's active, and then one that kind of you just feel at home at. I think that there are tons of ministry groups, and they do really good work, and I think that across all different campuses, I personally found a home at the CSC the very first day that I moved in, and I've been there ever since. It felt like home to me as soon as I walked in. Everybody was having a good time. They were so welcoming and inviting. They told me they had events so many days throughout the week. I thought that was crazy. I was like, how do y'all do events every single night? And so I think that that's something that I would say to look for, one that's active. And then for those of you that don't really know exactly what a campus ministry is, a campus ministry is literally just a ministry that's built around college students, and it's going to be either close to or on your campus. And I think that's really cool. It's not really something I knew a lot about coming to college. There's quite a few usually at different college campuses, just depending on how big the school is. But yeah, I think that answers the question.
And these next two are related to, can you be involved in a campus ministry and still be part of other organizations? And is it wrong to pledge a sorority or fraternity? So, Chance, would you mind answering that one?
The top one, or both of the questions?
Both.
I was hoping it'd just be the top one. To answer the question simply is yes, you can be involved in the campus ministry and still be part of other organizations. We have the world-renowned Stephen Thomas. He's in just about any organization you can imagine. I believe he's going to be an orientation leader, a RA, and he's still an active member at the CSC. So definitely you can be a part of a Christian or a campus ministry and still be a part of other organizations. Is it wrong to pledge sorority or fraternity? I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that, but I'm going to say no. So simple question, or simple answer, no. I don't really.
I really like putting my student ambassadors.
I was going to say I don't know how you want me to elaborate on that, but I'll just say no to the second question.
Okay. Anybody want to elaborate on that? Any? Yeah.
Oh yeah, my bad. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, just because I feel like, if anything, you can bring a lot into those places. Teach them how to have fun without using things that really aren't going to serve you ever. So I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and okay, so for the sake of, I agree with everything that was said, but again, I'm gonna hit this over and over again. If you are not involved in a good, strong organization that keeps you grounded, that keeps you spiritually fed, that keeps you connected with Christ and encourage you to grow, if you're not in something like that, and you're spending the majority of your free time in, let's say, any organization, fraternity, sorority, or any other thing that you're going to find on a campus or a university, and those organizations are doing things that are un-Christ-like, you can expect to begin to see yourself falling away. the amount of kids, the amount of college students that are able to be surrounded by that all the time and not get pulled into it is very, very rare. So, like Rayleigh said, I think you can be a light and a great example and bring other people to Christ, but you need to have a strong support system to keep you grounded as well. So just something to think about. Okay, is there a reason why so many college students stop going to church? And I mentioned earlier, we lose about 2/3. You know, guys, just, you know, if everybody stands up and I separate you out into thirds, 2 of your groups are going to lose your faith in college. And that needs to be something that gets your attention. That's a scary thing. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, that'll never happen to me, I got lots of friends who I can tell you said the same thing, and they're no longer in church. Okay? So what do you guys think? Is there one of you that wants to try to tackle that one? I'm not looking for anybody specifically, just Blair.
I think there are lots of reasons. I think first off, you're no longer going with your family, so it's no longer that routine of Sunday morning you're waking up and going with your family if you've already, if you've been going to church your whole life. So that's a big thing. Maybe you want to sleep in on Sunday mornings. I think another reason is that there's a lot of college students that do get involved in things that take up a lot of their time, a lot of their energy, and then they are just no longer want to go to church. So I think that there's a lot of reasons that people quit going to church. I think that, college is a hard time for some students. I think that they get involved in things that they never really thought they would, but it's just something that maybe their roommates did or their friends invited them to this party or something like that. Or you're involved in a group that isn't really helpful to you. So I think there's lots of reasons.
Okay, before this next question, looking at you guys, how many of you are planning to go to college that are in high school? Just raise your hands up. Okay, so I'm looking, most of you that aren't already in college. Okay, so this is one that comes up. Okay, before I say that, how many of you are planning to go to a state university or secular university? And what I mean by that is like not a private Christian university like Freed-Hardeman or Harding or one of those places. And show of hands, how many of you are going to like a UTC state university? Just raise your hands up high so I can see. Okay. So, good question here. Are there really atheist professors, and how do you handle that as a Christian?
Well, I think that I've taken a few classes now, and I've never really had a professor that's like actively anti-Christian. A lot of them choose to not elaborate on their faith, or maybe like make it known whether or not they are a Christian or not. Funny enough, like I have a very Christian professor, and he's awesome to be around. I love him. He has actually come to church here a few times. But I think that I have a few atheist professors that I know aren't Christian, and I don't really think that it's ever that much of a problem. I've never had that much of a problem with it. And I don't really think it's ever something where you should be hiding your faith from them or being afraid of it, because I don't feel like that would ever be a professional level of, like, they're not going to give you a bad grade because you go to church on Sunday. I really don't feel like that's something that anyone would ever encounter or a problem that would come up, really.
For Chance and Blair, have you guys experienced, since you're about to graduate, any professors that have kind of been kind of blasted Christianity or made fun of it?
I've had a couple professors who not necessarily like blasted it, but they were very, these were some science teachers, and they were very strict with their ways, and that it could kind of mention that Christianity couldn't be a thing, and some things like that. I guess how did I handle that? I kind of was in the class with another friend of mine. It didn't really affect my faith too much, but it is something that like we talked about. I've talked to Craig about, just kind of mentioning, they brought up points that are not invalid. I mean, some things that they think that it doesn't fit because of this reason or anything like that, but it does give you the opportunity to study more. I think that it was something that I actually, looked into some of the things that they were saying in some ways that didn't line up to me, and just different things like that. But it actually kind of pushed me to study a little bit more and actually kind of strengthen my faith versus making it worse for me.
Okay, just a few more questions here, then we're going to run out of time. What is the best piece of spiritual advice you have gotten to prepare you for life in college? And so again, anybody that wants to answer that question is good. We'll be editing out this long pause.
I wouldn't necessarily say spiritual advice, but just advice in general. And it's something I recently heard. There's no comfort in the growth zone, and there's no growth in the comfort zone. And I really took that to heart, knowing that when you grow, you're going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. Everybody goes through growing pains. We talked about that in guys' retreat this weekend, but that's one piece that will probably stay with me for the rest of my life.
Okay. Next question. How do you find time to study for college and study the Bible like you should?
All right. So I think that it's really kind of easy to make that balance. Like everything we've been saying, everything's on you to make the right decisions, to make, to surround yourself with the right people. At the Student Center, we have small groups, and part of our small group activity is that we associate an object every morning with studying the Bible. So when we wake up and see what that is, we'll start studying. I think mine's like a fan, Chance's an umbrella. But it's finding little parts that you can fit into your daily routine that will let you read and really give you like a moment to just focus on the Bible, focus on God's Word, and start studying. And again, at the Student Center, or really hopefully any campus ministry, they'll have events and such where, growing your faith, and I'm sure it involves reading the Bible, and, the balance in your life and in your college life really just comes down to the decisions you make, setting a good sleep schedule, which I got to do, and really just getting the skills to balance your time and balance your life around. And, as it said, God is first in our lives, and we should always find time to read his book, yeah.
Rayleigh?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment on that. I really think that if you make time for God and just lay time aside, like, He will work with you on that. I've seen ways. I don't think any time with Him's obviously going to be wasted. And it's like, oh, well, I have this homework to do, and I need to go meet up with this person to do this. Like, it's amazing because you're like, oh, if I just put 30 minutes aside to do this, like, He'll take care of that in different ways. I don't know. I believe that. So.
Okay. Hang on to the mic, Rayleigh.
No.
I want to know, what was the moment you realized you were serious about your faith?
I think the moment I realized I was serious about my faith is whenever I just I shared some of my story with the Girls Over Girls Retreat, and I think that I in my life had a moment where I hit a really low spot, and I think I was just at the point where I'm like, I don't have anything to live for. So it's kind of like, I'm going to live for Him. And ever since that day, like, once you start living for Him, I don't know if this is how you want to answer this question, but, like, for me, I needed a purpose, and He gave me a purpose, and that's changed my life better than anything else ever could. So that's all I have to say to that. No.
Ty?
Personally, the moment I realized about my faith, I had talked to Craig all the time, and trying to figure out this whole religion thing, how I was going to live my life, if this was a fit for me, if I wanted to make this part of my life. And as I was talking to him and I was telling him my story about how I came to Chattanooga and came to Chat State and came into the Student Center, I started to realize little things about my story and details about everything, every little thing that I'd thought about my life in the past 6 months. And I was like, yeah, the coincidence, I randomly found my roommate somewhere. Everything randomly lined up. I randomly got a phone call at a perfect time when I was driving up through Tennessee. And I started to realize that none of that was random. I started to realize that, this God that I was learning about, He worked in my life, and he worked to allow me to be here, and he worked to let me come to this church, let me come to the student center. And at that time, I was sitting in his office, and I started to think to myself, and I went home that day and I started reading, and I realized that this is serious, and this God that I was learning about, he knew me, and he worked in my life, and he loves me, and I love him as well. And that's when I sort of realized that, studied way more. I was baptized and right there. And, it was that moment where I came to that realization that none of that randomness that I thought about in my life, all the coincidence I didn't really put thought into, when they weren't coincidences. And it was that moment that I became serious, and that was a moment that I thought of myself as a Christian.
Okay, Chance or Blair? Any? Okay. All right, so any of y'all, before we close out, if there's a question that was not asked that you would like to know, y'all are welcome to come up here and ask it. Christian, yeah, come on up. You need to speak into the mic. It's like Ben Shapiro time.
So I know, I hear a lot about college and the stress levels really rise, I guess. I've heard a lot of students how they deal with just the stress of homework and of classes and everything. How do y'all deal with being stressed in times when you feel like it's just not going to happen?
Okay, Blair, go ahead.
I think that's a great question. I think that most of the people who know me well know that I get stressed every once in a while. Not often, though, of course, but because I really focus on my schoolwork sometimes. I really like to make sure that I'm getting everything done. I like to stay organized, and every once in a while that just doesn't get to happen. And so I think that the way that I kind of cope with that, I guess, is going to be prayer. It's going to be studying my Bible. Being at the student center is just a really great way because you've got other people. You are surrounded by other students who are also going through that same stress as you, maybe even going through the same exact class as you. So just being able to talk to them and being open with your friends, I think that that's kind of how I handle my stress. And then sometimes running. I like to run to deal with my stress. But
For me, I like to handle my stress very. I just like hanging out with people. I like spending time at the student center, the fellowship that it gives you. I have found that reading my Bible is very therapeutic. Reading the words, reading God's word, it really sets your mind in a good place to relax and understand that, no matter what, God has your back. That's really the end of the day. Nothing to worry about. There's so many Bible verses and everything. We've studied so much about anxiety and stress and everything, and there's so much relief to be found in there. And studying with people and having that fellowship, even just going to get fast food late at night, which I like to do often, it's just that the fellowship with people and hanging out with people. It's really wonderful, and it definitely depends on your personality, but no matter what, being involved in a campus ministry and having the right friends, as I've said every time I've spoken to the microphone, it really will just help you out great.
I agree with what both of Blair and Ty said, but I would also add taking that time. I actually talked to Craig about this recently, taking an hour out of every day and doing something you enjoy, doing something that takes your mind off of work, off of school, whatever it is. Like Blair mentioned running, Ty mentioned going to get fast food late at night. Mine might be working out, playing video games, something like that, just simply resting. But finding that me time that you may need, 30 minutes, from 30 minutes to about an hour every day.
Okay, any other questions from the group? Going once, going twice. Okay, so you guys, Ty, Rayleigh, Blair, Chance, thank you so much for putting yourself up here in front of everybody and answering these questions and being part of this podcast. I'd like to give them a round of applause. Okay, so we'd like your feedback. I'm always looking for suggestions and ideas on how to improve our episodes to bring relevant issues and topics that will be encouraging, helpful, and even challenging. So let us know if you like what we are doing. Help us get the word out by liking and sharing our podcast. So you see it up here on the screen. Feel free to share that. You got a whole season 1 that you can go back and listen to. There's some really great interviews that take place there. All right, final thoughts. Psalms 119, 9 through 12. How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. I have stored up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. Until our next podcast of The Lion, the Way, and the War, love one another, be kind to one another, and remember that the Creator of the universe loves you so much that he gave his only Son for you. Have a blessed day.